Bonjour, là, nous sommes là, vous le savez, pour la
As you know, we're here for the press conference on Decision to Leave.
Alors là, j'ai une très très belle table
I
avec
have wonderful guests,
qui
Tong
joue
Wei,
un rôle de femme
who plays
mystérieuse,
the part of this
envoûtante et
mysterious
dangereuse.
woman
La
who
scénariste,
keeps everyone spellbound. And then, of course, we have
l'acteur Park
the actor Park Tail, who comes under the spell of the suspect. We have Chung Seo-kyun, the scriptwriter, and Park Chan-wook, who came here for Thirst, for The Handmaiden, and Stoker, in addition to Old Boy. I'll put my first question to the scriptwriter. I read in the press kit that the film was based on a song. Could you talk to us about that a little bit?
사실 저는 노래를 듣지 못했고요. 영화를 오늘 어제
In fact, I didn't listen to the song.
박 감독님과 음악 취향이 좀
When I was rating the film, I listened to it for the first time. We have different tastes in terms of music with Mr. Park, so I hadn't listened to all these songs. I believe I had a somewhat more logical approach. Suri comes from the mountains. The policeman was born by the sea, and I adopted the approach of a sort of a misty atmosphere.
Thank you. 汤唯你好，我是来自凤凰网的记者 ，and I will make my question in English. This beautiful movie, Decision to Leave, is not your first international production, nor is it your first film shot in Korea. So how's your experience working with our director, Park Chan-wook? And we want how's the collaboration with the set? Thank you so much.
如何投入这个情景之中啊？就的最后那个问题是吗？没事，你说。
是说您和这个
对，我说朴赞郁导演。
对，朴赞郁导演在片场和您的这个合作，他对于您表演的这个指导。
谢谢。谢谢你的提问。对，这不是第一次和韩国导演合作，但是朴赞郁导演，我觉得他的给演员的这种信息量、安全感，然后完整，很完整，让你没有任何的后顾之忧，可以在他的电影世界里，在片场，就真的是非常享受的去工作，很保护演员。每一个工作人员在现场，我能看到他们都很自在的、很专业的在做他们的工作。那我觉得我非常的幸运，因为我也是导演的影迷。
This isn't the first time I've worked with a Korean director. It was a great pleasure to work with Park Chan-wook on the set. He always gives us a lot of information, yet is very protective at the same time. He gives us the fullest possible information and makes sure we all feel at ease and well protected. I'm a great fan of Park Chan-wook's films.
Really?
Hello. Sorry. My name is Ayako Ishizu for Vanguard Japan, and thank you for the really, really great films and the performances. And my question is for Mr. Park Chan-wook is well, the key art of these films, and also in the film, there's a kind of the Hokusai image. Hokusai's ukiyo-e image. So why did you come up with that? And also the Mr. Park Hae and the Ms. Tang Wei. And well, what is the biggest challenge? Because it is really tricky film. And I think that the way the filming would be really, really difficult. So would you tell me?
Please, one question.
Okay, all right.
예, 파도의 이미지가 이 영화에서 결정적이죠. 가장 중요한 이미지.
Yes, indeed. The images in the film are extremely important.
호쿠사이의 그
We have some
유명한
decisive images, in fact, as you mentioned.
인용한 것은 아닙니다.
As to Hokusai, that's not the actual image I was thinking about in particular.
파도를 생각하면 제일 먼저 또
This image by Hokusai is so well known that when you see or talk about a wave, you think about this drawing. I'm sure it's a thought that occurred to you, therefore. However, it was not intentional on my part. I didn't draw inspiration from that drawing.
네, 개인적으로 박찬욱 감독님과 작업한 것이 아직도 믿기지 않을 정도로
I loved
행운이라고
working with
생각이
Park
드는데
Chan-wook.
이왕하게 된 거
I was extremely fortunate to have this opportunity. When I accepted to play this part, I thought I really had to strive to do my best.
박찬욱 감독님이라는
As to the
새로운
challenges,
안에서
for me,
그동안 계속 함께했던 아티스트들과 그 안에서 저라는 배우가 잘
it was truly
뛰어보자라는 게 가장 큰 도전이 아니었나 싶습니다.
a question of plunging into the universe of Park Chan-wook together with the other actors. That was the biggest challenge.
And I would say, really, when I'm sitting here, I feel my heart beating with everybody because I really love Park Chan-wook director, everything. He really gives a lot of very incredible thought and make incredible characters, such as this time my character Sole. And how to say, just I told him right after screening last night, I said, thank you, 감독님. You make some part of my life complete. Thank you. And yeah, I think maybe that can express my feeling to work with Park Chan-wook this time. Thank you.
저 역시 똑같은 말을 탕탕에게 돌려드리고 싶어요. 반사.
I agree. I'd like to compliment Tang Wei as well. It was a pleasure working with her.
Journaliste d'un film en France, et je vais poser la question à
I
Madame
want to put a
Tang, d'abord
question
en
to
chinois et après
Mrs.
en
Tang,
français.
first in Chinese and then in
各位老
French.
师您好，我看到您的电影以后大受感动。当时媒体第一场结束以后，我们待在座椅上10分钟就站不起来的感觉。所以我想问您一个很简单的问题，就是在这部影片中，您所拍摄过程中所遇到的最大困难是什么？ Et en français, ma question est que dans ce film,
My question is as follows.
c'est quelle grande
In
difficulté
this
vous avez
film,
rencontrée?
what was the
Merci.
greatest difficulty for you?
说实话 I want to speak in Chinese. 说实话，我可以说没有，因为所有的困难都变成了享受。Okay, actually, I think, if we're deeply thinking, there's no difficulty in this movie shooting with Park Chan-wook because all the difficulty becoming so enjoyable. Yeah, that's my feeling. Of course, if there's some very, how to say, practical, 实际的，怎么说？实际的问题就比较，实际的。Practical, something practical will be language, of course, because I don't speak Korean, but I really enjoy to study something when I'm working. And another thing difficult for me is the beginning when we work together, language. And the first day, when we shooting first day, we three all prepare the translator machine. And we enjoy the beginning, and later we all don't use it anymore. It doesn't work because we don't need it anymore. Yep, that's it.
汤唯你好，我是
你好
来自凤凰网的记者。我有一个问题想问你，在影片中你饰演的女主角引用了孔子所说的“智者药山，仁者药水”，这是导演。
S'il vous plaît, c'est un...
Yeah, I will say that in English as well. Yeah. 这是你和导演共同探讨的结果吗？还是说剧本中本来是韩语，然后你和导演一起探讨如何让这个人物表达自己的内心？包括有很多台词你无法用韩语来说出来，最终是用母语说的。我想知道这个台词表达的过程是怎么样的。For the international audience, this is a question for Tang Wei and also the director. I was wondering the character in the film. She quoted Confucius, and there are so many words she can't let it out in Korean. So she spit it out in her mother tongue, Chinese. I was wondering, how did you to working on those lines? Was it originally in Korean, then she translated it on set? Yeah, that was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's all in script. And are very interesting, right? All in script. The director planned everything, and our scriptwriter wrote 瑞景 서경. Yeah. So everything is all very interesting dialogues. When I read it, I feel wow. Yeah. Even I never think about it. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Omar Franini. I write for the Italian website ODG Magazine. First of all, congratulations, Park Chan-woo and the actors Park Hae-il and Tang Wei. My question is for you, Mr. Director. Is there any movie that inspired you to make a decision to leave? A couple of months ago, I watched the Japanese movie from 1961, My Wife Confesses, and I noticed some similarities. Could you tell us something, please? Thank you so much.
그게 뭔지 말씀해 줄 수 있나요, 제목을?
Could you give me the title of the film again, please?
What's the title of that
Film, please.
Japanese film?
The title of the film, please.
예, 아는 영화고 제가 좋아하는 감독 중에 한 분이죠.
Yes, I do know the film, and I love the director. It takes place in the mountains.
야스조 영화죠. 예.
It's a film by Gasujo.
좋아하는 감독이고 영화인 건 분명한데
I very much like that director, and I do love that film. When I wrote the screenplay for this film, I wasn't thinking of that film, though.
사람들한테서
Even yesterday,
버티고라는
a lot of journalists
영화의 유사성을
mentioned Vertigo by Hitchcock.
이야기를 많이 들었는데 그런가? 저는 전혀 생각을 안 해봤었거든요.
And I said to myself, really? Because I'd never actually thought of that.
물어봤더니 사람들이 이렇다 이렇다
And
얘기를
when
해줘서
I said to them, why did you think of Vertigo? I listened to their explanations and I thought, well, indeed, there are some similarities.
제가 많은 영화들에서 영향을 받고
Similarly, I think I was influenced by any number of films.
있겠죠.
And in the end, these influences became a part of me and transpire in my films. I'm also referring to books, of course. The truth of the matter is that when I made this film, I wasn't thinking of any other films in particular.
안녕하세요. 월간 객석의 전윤혜 기자입니다. 영화 잘 보았고 감독님께 English.
Hello.
Okay, sure. I'd like to ask to the director about the music. You're also well known as a classical music lover, and in this film, the ex-wife's YouTube video, you explained. Climbing time with the Mahler's Fifth Symphony was very interesting. When he reached the top, the fourth movement ends so that he could enjoy the fifth movement entirely on the top. How did you get this idea, and what made you to put the Mahler's music? And then this fourth movement was played at the scene when Heojil said he's collapsed. Does it metaphorize something?
사실 그 곡을 쓰고 싶지 않아서 너무 오랫동안
Well, I used this movement because for a long time I truly tried to avoid this movement.
남편이 첫 번째 남편이
I wanted to find another piece of music.
라는 것을 버리고 싶지
I love
않았는데
classical music
우리가 산에
otherwise,
올라가면서 듣는 곡이
and I
무엇일까?
wanted to keep
여러 가지
this
이것저것 정말 많이 시도를
segment,
해봤어요. 근데
but I wanted him to appreciate another bit of
올라가는 데
classical
걸리는
music at the
시간이라는
outside. I looked hard.
몇 분인가 지금 잊어버렸지만 뭐 30분이면 30분
When
걸리는
climbing
시간이고
the mountain, I think it takes about 30 minutes. So the music had to last that time, and the music had to fit into the editing of the film as well. In light of all these constraints,
제가 이 곡을 쓰고 싶지 않았던 이유는 뭐 다 아실 거예요.
while I tried to find something else, I couldn't. This was the only thing that fitted.
그래서 너무
It appears in Death in Venice by Visconti.
흉내내는 것처럼
The
보일까 봐.
film uses this music so beautifully that I had the impression of copying it, so I didn't want to imitate anything else. That's why I wanted to avoid that music. But in the end, I had to give in to this idea and use Mahler's symphony.
비스콘티 혼자만 쓰라는 무슨 법이 있나?
I
그가
thought to
무슨
myself,
마땅했나?
well, there's no law that says that only Visconti is entitled to use this music. Why wouldn't I be entitled to use it too? And that's why, in the end, I gave in and used that music.
Bonjour. 안녕하세요. 저 질문이 있는데 영화 전반적으로 청록색이 많이 나오는 것 같아요.
français ou en anglais?
Oui, oui, je parle français. je vais parler après. 청록색이 많이 나오는데 원피스나 벽지나 청록색이 많이 나오는데 그 의미.
There are a lot of blues and turquoises and greens in the film. What's the meaning of that?
Couleur vert avec le bleu. Et du coup, j'aimerais bien savoir, mais juste parce que je n'arrive pas à choisir le mot. Et du coup, j'aimerais bien savoir
I'd
c'est
like
quoi
to know
signifié pour le.
what the meaning of these colors is.
바다, 산과 바다 이렇게 두 가지.
The mountains and the sea.
이 영화에서
These two universes are very present in the film, and they're very different from each other.
같은 종족이다라는
These two characters
하는 이유 중에 한 가지로
belong to the same species, granted, but come from very different backgrounds.
색깔이라고도 볼 수
You can see all this in the dialogue. We have the color of the mountain, which at times is the color of the sea. When you look at the sea or the mountain, sometimes they're green, sometimes they're blue.
달라 보이고
It depends on the weather, of course,
두 가지
whether it's sunny or not.
색깔이면서
These colors
그때 조건에 따라서
really lend themselves to the mountain and to the sea. And sometimes the colors change.
다른 순간에 보면 또 다른
It's a bit like characters. Sometimes you think a character is this or that way, but at a different moment he seems different.
그런 면을 좀 영화에서
You can't really figure out who the person really is. That's what I wanted to show visually in the film.
원피스 어디 있어요?
For this reason,
파랑으로 보였다 하는 뭐 어쩌고 그런 대사를
people say, well, where's the blue dress? Sometimes it looks green or turquoise.
다음에 추가한
Whence this dialogue after having chosen the color of the dress?
Hi, I'm Leila from The Independent here. Here. Thank you for this film. The question may be a little intimate, so I'm sorry if it is, but you tell love stories in the most, in the strangest way. It's always stories that talk about people who love each other in a very specific manner, and it seems to be your language. What is love for you?
저는 제 개인의 그 생활이나 삶의 어떤 부분을
In my
영화의
life,
소재로 사용하는 그런 타입의 감독이 아니에요. 그런 감독들도 있잖아요. 그리고 저도 그런
well,
사람들을
my life isn't part of my work. I know some directors talk about their own life, and I respect that, but I don't make films in that manner.
제가 생각하는 뭐 그런 것이 이 영화 속에 얼마나 담겨 있는지 저는 잘
I don't know to what
모르겠는데
extent my thoughts transpire in this film. Working with Jung So-young, the writer, we worked hard together on the script. If you really want an answer, however, for me, love
관계 중에 가장 인간이 무엇인지를 잘
is a relationship between two people.
개인이 또는 인간이란 종족이
And people show who they really are through love.
생각합니다.
The human species, the specific nature of a human being really comes through when there is love.
Montrer des sentiments qui sont vraiment très forts ou de faire toutes ces scènes de cascade et
You
d'escalade.
have all these climbing scenes. What led you to include all this in your film?
네,
And what was most difficult?
할 수 있는 데까지 최대한 해보면
Well, when it comes to the physical side of things, I tried to do
구체적으로 힘든 건
my
없었는데
best. Physically speaking, the shooting of the film was not actually physically exhausting.
감성을
However, my character,
어떻게 보여줘야 되는지
well, I didn't really know
인물이 그 탕웨이 씨가
how the director wanted me to truly express the character.
와중에서의 그 감정에 집중하는데 참
My
어려움을
emotions.
겪긴 했는데 그럴 때마다 감독님이 등불을
Had to be clear in the relationship I had with Jean-Sori. It wasn't easy, and the director helped me a lot. Sometimes we were a bit in the dark. We felt a bit lost.
이렇게
When all is said and done,
찾아갈 수 있었던 것 같아요.
I got a lot of assistance when preparing for this character, and I gradually learned who he really was. That was perhaps the most difficult side of things.
Hi, question from Brazil, G-Show, Rodrigo Fonseca, to Mr. Park Chan-wook. There is an action scene, the fight on the roof, which is incredible and reminded me a lot of the fights in Old Boy. And I feel that in Old Boy, you've made a revolution in the action genre. We would never had, for example, John Wick without Old Boy. What is the biggest challenge of filming violence without making it look trivial? Thank you very much.
제가 그 올드보이 때문에 무슨 액션 연출에 무슨 전문가인 것처럼 알려진 것을 우리 그 무술 감독이 들으면 정말 코웃음을 칠 겁니다. 저는 액션 장면을 연출하는
Some
것에
people say to me that action really transpires in Old Boy, but if my stunt person heard that, he'd probably laugh. I'm not all that keen on stunts and actions. It's just that the scenes require action, and that's when there are stunts.
세상엔 액션 장면 잘 찍는 감독들이 너무
Therefore, I really try to do my best, but there are so many directors who excel with action films and scenes that I wanted to look different. I wanted to use a different kind of procedure.
뭐 아주 그 힘이 느껴지게
So action scenes
그런 방향보다는 어떻게 하면 좀 다르게 하고 인물의 감정을 표현하는
I try to ensure that they're going to be rather different in my scenes and films, and I want them to portray the emotions of my characters. That's really what's important for me. That's why the scene you're talking about in the film Old Boy
이 드라마 속에
is there.
최적의
These aren't action scenes that are particularly beautiful to see. They are just suited to the context. These are supposed to be action scenes that you don't see elsewhere.
Hi, I'm a sound designer, Indian sound designer, producer, and also work for Berlinale, another festival. Yes, thank you for the film. I watched this film together at the first screening yesterday at Lumiere. I really enjoyed it. So my question is for all you, for director, for Tang Wei and Matthew, and it's really simply and chill. So what's your most impressed moment in this year's Cannes? So during this special time, like our COVID and the wars. Yeah.
On gardait les questions, the movies, about the movies, the question.
Most about the movies. Okay.
The movie, yeah.
Yes. So I like the sound design in this film, and that's all. Thank you.
Sorry. Very sorry.
No problem.
Hello,
Thank
my
you.
question is for Ms. Tang Wei. I'm really enjoying the film. And I know the character is very complicated and have a lot of emotions inside. I want to ask the simple question that is, what does the character attracts you the most in terms of its feature or portrait? 这个角色对你来说最吸引你的是什么地方？谢谢。
因为他是一个中国人，我也是个中国人，然后我可以很自由的去尽可能的，就其实是离我比较近，而且在导演写这个角色的时候，他也用了很多我自己身上的东西吧。我觉得这个应该说是，对我最享受的一块，也是让我最开心的一块。没有试过这样的角色嘛？对 ，Yeah. Yeah, the character is very close to me, so that also make a lot of space for me. I can more enjoyable when I'm doing it. Of course, first of all is a director's movie. 对，就你问的问题是这样的，对不对？And also I want to say is I like this kind of really subtle and use a lot of how to say feeling. You really need to bring from the heart this kind of character.
Hello, hi, this is Monica from SBS. I think this film is giving me 3 questions. The number 1 is someone stop loving someone if somebody's get married? And number 2, I like the line actually. And number 2 is someone stop loving if someone is disappeared? And number 3 is it's a detective, policeman can be falling in love with the suspect. I think this film is capture the paradox, or maybe it could be taboo, of the love and another format of love. I would like to ask a question to the director, and what was the inspiration of this format of love, and maybe personal story?
일단 이 혜준이라는 형사는 자기 일을 사랑하는 형사고
The detective loves his work.
사람한테 편지를 받은 사람처럼 현장을 읽는 사람이라고 생각합니다. 그래서
When
설애가
he's
만들어진
investigating
현장에서
the crime
설애의
scene,
마음을 읽어냈고 설애가 그것을 알았기 때문에
it's as though he was
사람이 사랑을 하는 것을
reading a love letter.
형사가
When he's on the crime scene,
대해서
he sees
사랑을 가지는
Sore,
필연적인 사랑이라고 생각했었고요.
and it's a kind of love that's of paramount importance for both of the characters.
맺는 관계
For me, the relationship between a policeman and a suspect, particularly when there's an interrogation, you have questions and answers, and sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes the suspect is the one who asks the questions to the policeman. So it's this conversation, the way they exchange looks, they eat together and then clean the table. And moreover, he gives her a toothbrush so she can brush her teeth afterwards. All this is part of the character of the policeman, who's very kind. Sometimes he spies on the suspect too. He spies on her because he's a policeman. And that's understandable, but it's a kind of harassment because he spies on her at all times of the day, even if it's part of his job. Sore, instead of feeling spied upon, she feels really protected by the policeman. This is a feeling which is very special. And then, of course, he tries to track her the relationship between the suspect and the policeman is a relationship which is very special. Under normal circumstances, when you love somebody, you are interested in the person, and bit by bit, this feeling of love grows. Sometimes there's an attraction as well. It's a bit like playing cat and mouse.
이 영화의 가장 중요한 특징이라고 생각합니다.
All this sort of merges in the film, and I think that's one of its key characteristics. When the detective asks questions to the suspect, he says, "What's this phone? What does it represent?" You have the impression that the policeman is really thinking about the suspect. He's thinking of her when he shows her all these objects. I think all this contributes to the overall feeling. And then, with the death of the second husband, this interrogation is one of the scenes I like best. I'm most satisfied with that scene. I really feel that I excelled. There are things which are very comic as well. They're very funny, even if they're actually quite sad scenes. The policeman's friend is watching at the same time, and you have the impression that it may be dangerous to show too much of oneself, to reveal to the person you have sitting opposite who you really are. This setup, I think, makes the scene both sad and comical. I think that's really at the core of the film.
네, 안녕하세요. 저 한국에서 온 연합뉴스 오보람 기자라고 합니다. I would like to ask two actors. I heard that when you guys accepted the casting suggestion, the scenario wasn't completed. Why did you accept Park's suggestion, even you didn't read the scenario?
Actually, I heard the whole story already. Yeah, because the first time I went to Park Chan-wook's office, 감독님's office, and then we were sitting together with Sekyong. Yeah, with Sekyong and 감독님 together. Yeah, about 1.5 hours, and they told me the whole story was really, really oof. So of course, I love it and so happy to get this kind of invitation.
저는 개인적으로 감독님과 만나서 한 작품의 이야기를
Personally speaking, I met the director for a lengthy 30 minutes, and he told me about the entire story. I thought to myself, well, do I have this in me? Can I draw on something in my career?
형사라는 역할을 한 번도 해본 적이 없습니다.
He told me about this character.
형사 역할들 남자들이
I've never
싶어하잖아요.
played the part of a policeman. Young actors usually dream about being a policeman
이미지가 너무
or a
강해가지고
detective.
이번 기회에 좀 그 부분을 좀
In
탈피하고
Memories of Murder, the image I had of a suspect was so very strong
그
that the director said to me, well,
생각을 했었고 그리고
the time
감독님이
is
구현하시려는
ripe
형사의
to
캐릭터가
become a policeman and go beyond your memories of the preceding film.
형사 영화들이 많습니다.
And what was offered me was something very novel and fresh. There are lots of police tales, but they're usually very rough, very violent.
친절하고 또 모든
In this case,
깔끔하고 청결한 느낌.
the detective is very clean-cut
폭력을
and
안
kind.
쓰면서 범죄를 사건을
He doesn't use violence, or at least uses it as little as possible in order to solve all these mysteries, these criminal cases.
그런 형사도
For
분명 전
me,
세계 어딘가에
it
많이
was
있을 것
really the kind of part I wanted to act, because I'm sure there are policemen like that in the world. Through me, therefore, I wanted to play a new kind of cop.
작업하는 데 있어서 아주 좋은 기회와
It was a wonderful opportunity for me to work with the directors. I was sure that the filming would go very well, and I was very pleased to have this part to play. There would be no reason to turn it down. With Tang Wei, it took me an hour because of the translation as opposed to just the half hour with Park Hae-il.
And one more thing, I just remember. When I heard it, it's I need to play a Chinese woman, but the story happened in Korea. That's very interesting because I can put a lot of my experience into it. I want to try. But I thought I can use a lot, but from the beginning to maybe to middle of shooting, I kind of blocked by the language. So the last half, I think, are getting better. That's my feeling. But Kam Nam-nin doesn't think so. Yeah, he's keep on encouraging me. Thank you. Yeah, I think I hope there are more and more this kind of culture crossing, how to say, can happen. Yeah, the movies. It will be, I think.
Okay, dernière question, last question.
Merci. Je suis journaliste coréen et je voudrais
I'm a
poser une
journalist
petite question
from
au
Korea.
réalisateur
I'd like
Park
to put a
Chan-wook.
question to the director, Park
Il n'y
Chan-wook.
avait pas beaucoup de scènes très sexuelles ou
There weren't very many
violentes dans ce
sex
film,
or
et
very violent
puis,
scenes in this film.
nous dire la raison.
Could you tell us why?
아니 다른 감독이 이런 영화를 만들었으면 이런 질문을 안 했을 텐데.
Had another director made this film, you wouldn't have asked that question. Why are you asking it to me?
뭐가 이렇게 있으면 그게 왜 있느냐라고 질문을 할 수 있는데 뭐 없는데 뭘 왜 없냐고.
When there's not something, you say, well, why isn't it there? And conversely.
제가 참 어제도 여러 나라 배급사들.
Yesterday, I met several distributors from around the world, and when I was talking with them, we did discuss similar matters. Of course, they needed to promote the film in their respective countries. They wanted to say this is a new development in the work of Park Chan-wook. But I think that would have been misguided, so I said, no, don't say that. Don't talk about nudity or sex being new developments.
왜 그랬는지 정말 글쎄요. 그냥 필요하지 않다고 생각해서 안 한
I don't know, quite honestly. I think it's because I didn't need violence or nudity in my film. It wasn't necessary. And right at the beginning, when I prepared the film, I really wanted to make a film for adults.
사람들이 그러면 정말 엄청난 섹스 장면이 나오나 봐.
And everyone said to me, well, that's going to be a really erotic, sexy film.
이런 기대를 낳는구나.
And I said, well, how odd that people would expect that kind of thing when I say it's an adult film. So I did the exact opposite.
Okay, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.